All right, in this recording, I wanted to show you guys the proof template that I use to send clients. So whenever I'm ready to send an art proof for an order, this is the process that I use to do that. I've set up a template inside of Illustrator, and then I do the mockup inside Photoshop, blend the two together, and then I send it as a PDF to my clients. So let's jump right in. The first thing I do inside of Illustrator is I go to File and then New from Template, and then I select the template that I have created. I call it Artwork. There, you can create custom templates inside of Illustrator. I could do another video showing that, but just know that it's available. And so that's what I've done here so that I start off with all the same tools every time. First thing you'll see here is this is just an 8.5 by 11 area. This is where the proof is actually going to get placed. And then this is my output area. So this is the size of my film, the 13 by 19. And so I'll use this to place the artwork. I like to have these both in the same file just to minimize the number of files that I have. But also because since this is artboard 1, once I place the output file right here, this is going to show on the icon or the preview when I'm searching through the Finder and looking at artwork. So it's going to be easier to see what the artwork actually is for the client. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my symbols. I've set these up ahead of time so they're available every time I use this template. And so what I want to do is pull out the type of print that I'm going to use. So if this is just a front print, then I'm going to use a single print. If it's a front and back, then I'm going to use a double, a 2 print, or a 3 prints, etc. Most of the ones I do are single, sometimes double. So I'm just going to pull over the single right into here. And then what I need to do, I've got a layer set up here for my Alpine Proof. That's the name of my company here. So if I just turn that on, and then I can zoom in here and we can take a look. Now I've got the surrounding template area set up. What I'll do is just set the customer name, give the project a name. This is for the date. I'll change this each time they make a revision and I send a new proof, change it to a different round. And then this date will just correspond to whatever version of the proof we're on. So, you know, today's date, November 3rd, I would put 11/03/2022. If we do another revision and I send another proof tomorrow, then I'll just change this to 04. Artwork ID is something that I maintain inside of another application. So whenever I get a new client or a new order that's not a reorder from previous artwork, I will add that into my artwork catalog, and that process kind of gives it its own ID, and I place that ID here. And my invoicing software has sales order numbers, and so I'll just place that here as well. And this is just for my own reference, future state, you know, in case I ever need to look it up and find something quickly, then I'll be able to find that. This information I also save within the file name whenever it comes time to save this proof so that it's easily searchable through my computer. So I'll go down here. Typically my process starts with just disconnecting this from a symbol. So once I pull over the one that I want to use, like in this case, the single print, then I'll just select to break the link. I'll ungroup it until it goes away. And so now I've got it ungrouped. I actually had nested symbols, so I need to also break the link here and then ungroup it. And then now I can access these different areas. So I would change this to full front, for example. And then print style, this is for things like, vintage or standard or, any other kind of unique print style that you've talked to your customer about. You want to put something recognizable here. Otherwise, if it's nothing out of the ordinary, then just put standard. And then print size and ink colors. Print size I'll change once I get the artwork in here, but ink colors, let's say, for example, this one is going to be white and black. So we'll set that to white and black. All right, so now we're ready to place the artwork. So I actually have something just copied here. This is just my logo. So let's say that I'm going to print this on some shirts. As you can see, it's a navy and a white. So we'll change this. It's not really a navy, it's kind of a light blue. So we'll just say blue. Let's just make it navy. And I'll select into this. And let's find a good navy color. Now let's just leave it at that. Okay. So we have the artwork. Now we need to do a mock-up. So I'll usually just have this artwork available in this file, and then I'll switch over to Photoshop and do the mock-up from there. So let's switch to Photoshop. All right, I've got a gray Castlefell shirt here. These are great shirts. If you haven't used them in the past, they are made of recycled plastic bottles, and they're really nice. So let's just pull this up. Let's say this is about what we're going to do. And what if we were going to do this more of like a vintage style? Then I would change the filtering here on the opacity. So I'd say, something like that looks pretty good. You can kind of see the shirt showing through. Now I print with just water-based ink, so I'm going to get some of this anyway. So I try to show the most realistic mock-up for the customer. So I usually will go through and do something like this anyway. So if I were going to do that, maybe it'd be a little bit more noticeable in the color. Go one more. That's a little much, so let's drop the opacity down a little bit. How about right there? Let's say that was a more realistic representation of what this shirt's going to be. So then I would just save this. 1000's fine. Let's just save it. Let's save it just to my desktop here. And then let's go back to Illustrator. All right, now I'm going to do either file place or just drag and drop the artwork, the mock-up into my computer or into my Illustrator document here. But file place will do the same thing. Put this, move it to the back so this behind these outlines here. I like to give it as much, as large as I can to fit in the space. So that looks pretty good. And then now I need it over in this area. This is where I show the close-up. So I usually just drag it over. I'll select it and the square. In fact, let me just select the square and copy it because I'm going to be able to paste it back in. We'll say make clipping mask. Now we have it clipped, but I want that square back on top of it so that it looks good. Now I can double click into here, increase the size so the artwork fills the area so they can see a more detailed view of how the artwork's going to look on the shirt once it's printed. And then let's say we had this as more vintage style. Print size. Now this is where we would use this here. Let's say, this is a a full circle, so it's going to be the same width and height. But if it were, longer than it is tall or vice versa, then this measurement's going to change. But for this case, let's just say we were going to do 8 inches wide, which I think is pretty good for a circle. The circles always appear larger when they're printed than they really are. They just feel larger. So I would normally do a full front print at like 9 or 10, but with the circle, it's going to give that same feel and appearance at just 8. So I'm going to take this back down to where it was. And then over here, I'm just going to say 8 inches by 8 inches. So I like to include that information for the customer. So now I have this ready to go. All I need to do now is just Command Option S to save this. And, I'll just choose a location, give it a name. Again, I have a certain naming convention, so I include the sales order number, the artwork ID, customer name, and then the word proof. So I'll save that as a PDF. I'll obviously save this file, but I'll save a PDF version as well into the same folder. And then that PDF is what I'll send to the client. And, you can choose some settings on the PDFs where you restrict editing, you set passwords, things like that. If you feel you need to do that, highly recommend you give it a shot. There is also a share feature now in Illustrator that if you don't have your artboard here, you could just share your film here. You could share just the artboard here, and it would share this with the customer to get feedback that way. Or you can use, an alternative proofing method that's maybe an online proof. Once I have approval and I'm ready to set up my output file, then I just drag over some registration marks here that I have, get them close to center, but then I can just go over here and align to center artboard. And then I will break the link of those, and then I'll ungroup them. All right, so we got those all separate, and then I'll just drag over the file. I'll set it to the true width and height, position it pretty good. Let's go ahead and center it on the artboard as well so that it's all aligned with the registration marks. Pull these bottom ones up. Now I've got my film ready. So my film and my proof are in the same document. I've got them both available to me right here. I've got the artwork separate as a vector file here. I can go into Photoshop and adjust how this is shown. I saved this as a JPEG. You can also place a full Photoshop file in here. And then, you could select this edit in Photoshop so that you can kind of work back and forth through the two applications to get your proof set up and your edits made and make the new mock-up. Customer comes back and wants changes, then you're going to need to make a new mock-up. So sometimes it's kind of nice just to drop the Photoshop file into there. But that's it. That's my entire proofing workflow. You know, I've used several different systems. I've used Sketch, I've used just Photoshop, and this is just a workflow that works best for me right now. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. If you have any feedback, any suggestions on the way you do proofs, I'm always looking to make things better. You know, whether it's some of this information, maybe there's information I need to provide that I'm not, or maybe you found that some of this information is not necessary, whatever. You know, I've got some disclaimer stuff down here about making sure that everything is approved, and once it's approved, I can't be held liable, things like that. So any recommendations, let me know, but I'd love to know what you guys think of this. So hope you enjoyed it, and I hope this helps you, and let me know if there's anything else I can help with. Take care.